Okay, welcome everybody to the afternoon sessions for the Sowell Collection Conference. I'm going to remind you, if you haven't done it already, to make sure your cell phone is turned off. Mine is. And our first session today, I actually can talk a little bit about this wonderful person, Kate Brunson, because I met her when I was working with Andy Wilkinson's class on the creative process. They came in and they looked at various journals from the writers in the Sowell collection. And then Kate has taken that, what she learned then, and what she learned at Andy in the semester, and developed this, should I call it a talk?
Yeah, talk, books, art, I don't know. Same.
Kate Brunson, who's an undergraduate student in our honors college here, so please welcome.
Way shorter than that, guys. Come on. Okay, so as she's already sort of explained, this project stemmed out of something that we did in creative process, which was we got to come and we got to see all these beautiful notebooks from the writers in the Sowell collection. And it actually started off with one specific author, Gary Paul Nabhan. And for some reason, I was reading all these notes, and he's got these notes about fruit markets and weird things and longitudes and latitudes in the middle of nowhere. And for some reason, my brain was like dragons, because that makes sense. So I ended up starting this piece. Anyway, start off, I want to see a show of hands. How many of you think you are naturally creative people? Okay, so that's a good part of the room. That's nice. Good for y'all. If you didn't raise your hand, you're dead wrong. So, and here's why, and this is why I'm going to go into this. So, in creative process, we learn about how to view our creativity, and the most common ways we view it are the kind that you see when you're a kid, which is look, it's a puppy, but it's actually a cloud. And it's this blend of things. So I broke down creativity into basically 3 different types, and they're wonderfully represented in this box, the magic box. And there are 21 pieces in this box with 3 levels, so 7 to each level, and each of them represent type. And each of them also represents one of the writers here. So if you're a writer here, you got a piece. Kind of cool. So these pieces are interesting. And so the first one is blending the real and the unreal. And this is actually the first one that I thought of, which came about because I'm also taking an introduction to poetry class this semester, and we were reading Walt Whitman's Song to Myself, and we were talking about, what are these pieces? What is he really talking about? Because if you've read Walt Whitman, his stuff's a little strange sometimes, a little bit. And we were talking, and I will not credit my professor because he decided not to come to the presentation. In that he said, imagination is the blend of the real and the unreal. Your experiences and your dreams. And so I've built these 7 pieces to represent that. But I got to thinking, that's not the only way that people are creative. That's a very small demographic. And a lot of people tend to think that they've lost this ability as they get older to blend things like that and that sort of fluidity that you have when you're a child. And so then I thought, okay, well, what's another way? Well, another way we can be creative is reminding ourselves to take a different perspective. And so each of these pieces in this level have basically a different scene depending on which side you're looking at. And it's to remind ourselves that, when we're looking at a problem of creativity, sometimes the most beneficial thing is to look at it from a different perspective, to see it. So if you guys paint, I don't know how many of you paint, but you'll stand way far back to look at the piece and see if you want to change something, if something doesn't look right. And so that's what this level was based on, is this idea that in order to get a full picture of what's going on, you have to change what you're looking at. And even then, I got to thinking, this still isn't everything. Yes, we can take a different perspective. Yes, we can blend what we know and we don't know, and we can come up with some pretty cool things, but there's still a lot left undone. So the last one that I thought of is something that we broached in our class, that creativity isn't always something that comes naturally. Yes, there are creative people. I'm very jealous of those people. But there's a degree of work that people don't realize that you have to put in. It's not, I'm going to sit down and paint this beautiful picture from nothing. You have to have a sort of idea. You have to work it out in your head. So each of the pieces in this level requires a little bit of work to see what's inside. And I will allow you guys to come up here and look at them at the end because they're really detailed and I'm very proud. So there are these three different types of creativity and ways that we can see the world around us that helps us come up with new things. And being here, I assume you all want to create new things. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hope I'm not. And I hope this has given you some more tools in the way to sort of view the world around you, the ways to view your own creativity, and come up with something new. That's it for my presentation, short and sweet. I will have Q&A, just in case. Does anybody have questions? Yes.
You said that each one of these represents one of the writers that whose journal or writings you immersed yourself in?
Yes.
Are you going to tell us who's who?
Yes, I absolutely can. There's 21 pieces, but sure. So, yeah. This one is Doug Peacock, and if you know, he's an environmentalist, but he also likes to skydive. So we have a little skydiver, and his little parachute is protecting all the little wildlife here. Then we've got John Lane. He's one of the founders of the Bodley Head Publishing House. Barbie got turned into a Renaissance male. It was beautiful. We've got Clyde Jones. He does a lot of work on how to preserve and taxidermy animals for museum pieces. And so it sort of transitions, and he does a lot of work on the African savanna. And Mark Reisner wrote a lot of books on irrigation of California and how that sort of transformed how California then populated and became Hollywood. We've got Walter McDonald. He was a fighter pilot, if you don't know, and one of his books is The Field of 1,000 Stars, I want to say. And so we've got a little plane flying off into the stars. And then let me read, this one's Patty and Rogers. And so she wrote this book about the firekeeper, basically. It's like this person who keeps the fire, that, you know, very, very mythological in a sense. It's very cool. Max Crawford, we've got Little Saloon, Levette, some communist propaganda side, and those no, those all pertain to some of the stuff that he wrote. And then we've got Anik Smith, and this one, he writes a lot of books about, you know, deforestation, this problem that we use with fire clearing forests. And so we've got like this fire cleared forest with a bridge is burnt and a little person walking their dog. And they're gonna go for a swim apparently. And then we've got David Quammen, and he writes some books on evolution. So I got my little kind of evolution thing going on. And then he writes about tropical diseases on islands and basically how it kills off all these island species. So we got a dead man there. But then if you look at it from oh, you guys are so great. I found it very funny too. But he also writes some spy thrillers. So this one from this side, it looks like just a dead man died from starvation. And then you find out the poor man was shot in the back of the head. And then this one is Lisa Courtier. I don't have my notebook for it, and this is one of the first ones I designed, so I actually don't remember which book I based this off of. But basically, this is supposed to be like a pine forest made out of concrete, and then a forest, or a cityscape made out of forestry. So it's kind of backwards, and I don't know, it's kind of amusing.
That would be Hooks of Snakes, the urban ecology.
Thank you. Yes. So it's really cool. And then I've got William Kittredge. We got a little man playing the guitar. And then we've got Northwestern and house.
Totem.
Yes, with totem poles and the whole jazz. That was a lot of painting. Rower, he has a lot of books. Like the majority of his books are flowers, like intro to these flowers and, you know, guides to all these flowers. So I got a lot of flowers that match the flowers of Big Bend National Park, which is the main stuff that he looks into. We got a little people posing for pictures. Then Sandra Schofield, and this is based on a few of the books she writes. She writes a lot of fiction books. So there's like somewhere like, hers are kind of sad. There's like homeless moms and widows and stuff. So it's depressing, but that's that bad. This one actually was this was the first one that I designed. This is where this project started. And originally this was going to be it, but in a bigger scale, obviously. And it was Gary Paul Nabhan's journals that I looked at. And it was not based off of any of his books or published work. I just saw these journals, saw all his notes about these little mercados, and I was like, you know what? Market dragon. I don't know why, but that's what my brain did, and we just went with it because I wanted an excuse to make a dragon. Dragon. Alrighty, and then we've got Robert Michael Pyle. He writes some stuff about it's cryptozoology. So we got the iconic Bigfoot, and he also, like Rower, he writes a lot of books on nature, and so his are about butterflies. And so I got a whole bunch of butterflies in there that are kind of cute. And then I have Barry Lopez. He's written some books about white buffalo, about Stonehenge, so we've got those represented. And then he also writes one about wolves and how, you know, they interact with men, and yeah. And so we've got a man wolf right there. You know, but oops, not really anything. All right. David Duncans, he writes and this is based off really one book, and it's this guy who's trying to figure out how to find his way in this city, and he's also fishing with his dad. It's like a really strange thing. But so he's fishing, and if you look inside, it's a tiny city. So he's kind of removed from it. It's very philosophical. Susan Bryn Morrow, we have a little oasis kind of thing that, you know, it's not actually there. And then she writes a lot of stuff on Egyptian, I'm not sure if it's these Egyptian burial chambers, so I made one of those. And actually, fun fact, these hieroglyphs along the side are her name.
Oh my God.
So I spent some time on that. Gretel Ehrlich writes a lot of books on opposites. So that's a common theme that I saw. And she writes some about like the Old West, and she writes some about ice caves. And so that's what we got. We have an ice cave underneath our desert, and this man seems homeless, but really he's got a giant palace underneath. He's got more space than I do. Rick Bass writes a lot of stuff on petroleum engineering and, you know, environmental conservation. Words, English, I swear I speak it. And then, actually, that is a Volkswagen Rabbit. That is what he drove. I took the time to research that for some reason. And we have like a little deer skull inside. It's not actually deer skull. It's made out of air dry clay. I couldn't kill anything if I tried. I would cry. Oops. And that's not glued on top because otherwise it doesn't fit in the box. And so last is Bill McKibben, and he rides his bike. He's an avid biker. And actually, I think at one year he actually like rode with the Pelotons, which was really cool. And so he's got, so we've got post-apocalyptic, bad version of the future for Earth. And it's, so I've got these cool things. And then the flip side is he writes stuff about basically where we colonize Mars, and it's super cool, and we have, you know, we're kind of awesome there. And so I've got these pieces, and he's an avid photographer, so you're viewing it through that lens, which is kind of fun. Anyway, so those are all the pieces in their full majesty.
Hey, can you talk about the shape of the box?
The shape of the box. Alrighty. So the shape of the box was actually determined by the pieces, because I knew how I sort of wanted the Gary Paul Navhags to flow, and part of the reason why I chose a diamond shape over, like squares or something that would be a lot easier, was that there's this sort of sense that I really like that the phrase diamond in the rough. So while you might have an idea and it seems kind of crappy at the moment, it's one of those things that if you keep working at it, you can get something really cool. And so that sort of diamond shape, and then it comes all together in a little star because they fit nicely like that. You guys have any more questions?
Will these be on display? Like over there on this table maybe?
I actually have to run to a chemistry lab after this, so I will have these pieces, and if I'll give you guys a few minutes to come up and look at them. But
She's not going to trust us with it.
Exactly. For those of you still here on the first Monday, these will be part of the classes that will run from 10 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon in the Crossan room of the library. So for those of you traveling from out of town, sorry.
Have you thought about putting this up online somewhere?
I had not actually. Sure. I can do that. I can whip something up.
I love it like that. I find my questions.
So we only have a few minutes, so let's
That's
take
it?
time to look at what she's got here.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Office too. At the end of the day.
Cheers.